who is this person that I am actually trying to connect with, and what is it that these people want and need? Because without that, we're just really just selling nothing to no one. People do not buy products. They buy emotions, and they just justify with logic the expense. There is market for everything. There is a niche for every single product. We just need to be willing to essentially polarize, right? And in a way discriminate who this is not for. It doesn't mean you're never going to get those people, but it just means you're going to be clearer and attract in an easier way who this is really for.
This podcast is brought to you by Bambassadors.com, the go-to platform for e-commerce brands to create video reviews that boost social proof and sales on TikTok and beyond. Get your first video review created and posted by a genuine creator, completely free, no strings attached, and no credit card required at Bambassadors.com.
Welcome to the eCom X Factor podcast, where it's all about launching and scaling your business using sales funnels, automations, and smart marketing. And now, please welcome your host, the founder of eCom X Factor, Yaron Bin.
Hi, Silvia. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. I must admit that this was the longest off the record conversation I had before podcast episode. And it was so much fun.
Yes, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I could talk forever. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Awesome. It's my pleasure. Can you share a bit about your background, and then we'll dive into the topics that we already spoke about off the record, and maybe even more new interesting topics?
Yeah, sure. And you know what? It's interesting when you guys reached out, I saw that you are freedom captains, I was like, wow, freedom captains, that's so amazing. Because for me, I also started my business because I want to be free. I live in Australia right now, and I've been a lone migrant for over 20 years. And, when I first started, I didn't really have much to start with. It was just I literally had nothing to my name, nothing. But as the time progressed, you work really, really hard, and you start getting somewhere, and, you get education, you start getting jobs, and you progress through your career. And, I thought I was on the upside until you realize that this is it. You just work and work and work and work. And the paycheck is just never catching up with the amount of work you're getting and with the responsibility. And then you have to ask your boss, to be able to visit your family. And so I was just I just want to be free. And so, that's why I started my business. I just want to be free. And I thought, I'm smart. I've got a corporate background. I've gone through so much stuff in my life as a migrant in a new country. How hard can this be? Right? It's going to be easy. And so I just quit my job and started an online business. And, I was prepared to work hard, but guess what? Nothing happened. And not just that nothing happened, not one sale, nothing, crickets, quiet. And I was what am I doing? I went on YouTube and YouTubed all of these things and watched videos until I got overwhelmed, and I bought some courses. They were promising me overnight success. And I was just working and learning. And 6 months go by. And by that time, I spent almost all of my life savings, literally down the drain. In the meantime, you've got your former colleagues from your corporate world, who are asking you, hey, how is the business going? And you just feel so stupid, so stupid and so defeated and so crushed. And, at that point, I had my $2,000 left in my bank account. And I was okay, this is my last chance. This is it. This is my last chance. And so I locked myself in our spare room, and I, started to put on the wall, everything what worked and what didn't, and why and how. And I was just drinking coffee after coffee after coffee. This was late at night. Later on, I started on the Red Bull. Don't suggest doing that.
Don't go down that route.
Yes, really, really not good. And at some point, early in the morning when like my heart was just really beating and I was just like looking at all of these papers that I had like on the walls, and I stepped back. And as I stepped back, I like realized like that's when it really hits me, like my business did not work because there was no system to it. And when you have no system, you cannot adapt it to you. And so it was really just what I call these days mumbo jumbo. And this is also what lots of our students suffer from. It's like that mumbo jumbo, we just get overwhelmed with all of these new shiny objects, and we think we know, and we Google stuff, and then we follow the trail, and we like plaster all these things together, but there just was no system to that. Mm-hmm. And as a result, it didn't work. And so that's kind of eventually what led me to creating my own system, and, slowly but surely started to put myself back together. Of course, I had to, seek a mentor as well and pay even more money. Mm-hmm. It doesn't just magically happen, but that was the main realization that, I really had no system. And so finding that system really allowed me to finally have the freedom that I've always wanted.
Mm-hmm. Can you explain or elaborate about what were the first steps that you did in order to move away from the mumbo jumbo and create a system? Did you create a 6-month plan or like a strategy, or what exactly do you mean by creating the system?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's more just an understanding of the basics of how things flow and how things work. Like we all think in our online businesses when we first start that we think that, we are not popular, or that people don't want to buy from a new brand, or we think that, our prices are too high, or that maybe the logo, the color is not good. Mm-hmm. So what I often find, and this is the mistake that I've made, and I've also often find our students make too, is that, they put their offer out there and they get no sales. And so we often tend to doubt ourselves and start changing things on the website, and we forever change and optimize. And then at the end, when people don't know what to do, they just start discounting their product. Mm-hmm. But that's not kind of the real root cause or the real problem, right? The real problem is that we just don't have the ideal customer. Mm-hmm. And enough of the ideal customer looking at our offer. It's just as simple as it is. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of the basics of that, starting to understand, okay, well, who is that ideal customer? Who is this person that I am actually trying to connect with? And what is it that these people want and need? Because without that, we're just really just selling nothing to no one. And the thing is that there is so much noise these days, and it's even gotten to be more this year, but there is just so much noise out there. I find small businesses, and particularly the starting one, they don't want to polarize or niche down too much, and that was the same with me. It's no, I can do this, and this could be that, or this could be that. No, we are a brand for everyone, but you can't be a brand for everyone, because if you're a brand for everyone, you are a brand for nobody. Mm-hmm. And it's only something a big business can afford, but small business cannot. So the first step was going back to basics. Okay, who is that ideal customer? And then where do I find that ideal customer? Is that ideal customer hanging out on Facebook, or are they on Google, or are they on YouTube? Or where are they? Are they on buying products on Instagram? Where are they? These are basics that we often think that, we've got it figured out, but we don't. And without having the eyes of the right person on the offer, you can forever pay Facebook and Google and all of these platforms. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I feel the same. So often, me and my wife, we talk about our e-commerce stores or different offers that we're running. And then we look back and we say, how stupid were we? Why didn't we do the fundamentals? Like the value ladder by Russell Brunson, or why didn't we use the framework of Dan Kennedy? And all the time we just go back to the basics. So you move away from the basics because you start to become too cocky, or that you think you already figured it out. And once stuff stops working, suddenly you realize that you need to move back to the basics and to the systems, to the process.
Right. Exactly right. Because we sometimes think we're too smart, that, yeah, I know that stuff, but that stuff is not my problem anymore. That's too wishy-washy. My problem right now is Facebook ads, or that, my YouTube ad doesn't work, or my Instagram, or my picture is not the right picture, or or my product is too expensive, but that's not the case. That's hardly ever the case. Because like people, we know from so much data from history of marketing, people do not buy products. They buy emotions, and they just justify with logic the expense. And I think this is the mistake that we tend to make sometimes, you know, that we just think that this time we know different, and we just throw offers out there. And once the advertisement cost gets a little bit too high, then, you know, everything is up in the air.
There's also another benefit, in my opinion, to following a system, and I felt this on my end as well. Once you have a system and you follow it through, you don't look to the sides. You don't look like to have the shiny object syndrome, and you have less doubts because you're following like a specific process, and you just stay on the path. So this also helps in like from a mental perspective. Exactly.
And then you can go back and repair it.
Exactly.
You know, like, okay, well, if something didn't work, then let me just go the step before, and that's it. You know, rather than trying to like fix everything at once.
Cool. And I know that you also developed the Ninja method probably to solve this pain. So can you elaborate about the Ninja method?
Yeah, sure. So the Ninja method is kind of came even after the system. So we had the initial system, and everything worked great, you know, for about 2.5 years. And, you know, we really understood the predictability of online media and how the algorithms were working, and, you know, what offer we need to put in front of what customer. And it was just working really well. And I also call this with like the social media magic, right? So that we were able to just create offers or ads. And some of those ads, even if they were just relatively simple, we were able to, over time, utilize that algorithm magic who put that in front of the ideal customer, as long as we created some parameters. And so this worked really quite well until, you know, the beginning of 2021 comes, and suddenly the results weren't the same anymore, you know, and we tried to like replicate it and spend more on social media, and suddenly the results were getting worse and worse and worse. And at this time, you know, we had a well working system, or so we thought. And so suddenly the hole we started to create was like much bigger, right? Because you don't spend anymore $20 a day. Like by this time, you know, you spend more like $300, $400, $500 a day. Yeah. And when it doesn't generate the results, you know, then you like are so confident that you know what you're doing that you just like keep spending that, right? And so the results were like getting worse and worse and worse, and I just couldn't figure it why, you know, and so many people were like talking about iOS 14 changes, and we kind of knew that these were the changes out there, but for so many people it just felt that something was off, you know. And the more we kind of started to look into that, the more I realized, like, hang on a minute, like all of these results we were getting were driven by that algorithm magic that was seeking that ideal customer for us. And when it came to the messaging or the ads, we were doing more of what we call broadcasting, or I also refer to that as a billboard strategy, you know, like how you drive on a freeway and there is just like a big billboard like, hey, drink Coca-Cola. And, you know, big brands do that and they don't know who's going to drive on that freeway, but they're like, they don't care. They've got the money, so they just spend it. And in the past, you know, even us small businesses, we were able to do this. We were able to, as long as we knew who the customer was, who we were looking for, we could put this, you know, I call it now a mediocre kind of messaging or branding out there because that algorithm magic would, you know, do it for us. But since this year, there was no longer there, you know, and so I started to look at, okay, hang on a minute, like something doesn't make sense here. Like this type of messaging, this type of online sales don't work anymore, but we are in the fastest growing industry ever. Like in 2021, it's a $4.8 trillion industry. We've got 2.7 billion engaged users on Facebook. We've got 1.3 billion actively engaged people on Instagram. Like that's insane.
Crazy.
And the amount of time people spending on social media is just growing. The amount of people buying from social media is growing. So I was like, hang on a minute, something is not right here. Like, yes, I understand there've been these changes, but we're in the fastest growing industry ever, you know, e-commerce is like on steroids. So like, how come? So it just didn't compute. So I started to analyze lots of stores that we had in the network. And by this time we've had, thousands of stores in our network. And obviously there was all of the industry benchmarks and the best practices. So I started to look into that and realize hang on a minute, there is so many people who obviously do crazy well, who are skyrocketing because of what's the industry doing. And there's those ones that don't do that well. And so started to look at what do these have in common, right? What particularly the great performance, what is it that they do?
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that, they were just doing things a little bit more intelligently. They were just making small tweaks where they were just doing things a bit more intelligently. And that's how iCommerce was born. That's how I realized hang on a minute, okay, there is e-commerce here. And in e-commerce, we still rely on that algorithm magic that's long gone.
Mm-hmm.
And we just broadcast the message and we just throw it to everybody else. And we expect all of these things to happen. And, thinking by relatively low average order values, profits were still possible.
Mm-hmm.
Whilst in iCommerce, we just need to do that a bit more intelligently. And that's why it's called iCommerce, because it's really about being a bit more intelligent. It's intelligent commerce. And it's about looking, okay, how can I create intelligent ads?
Mm-hmm.
Not just ads, but intelligent ads. And, these intelligent ads, these are just simple, small tweaks that people can do by really understanding specifically who the who is, because it's all about being able to be crystal clear with your message and cut through. That's what it's all about, because in the past, we were just able to broadcast and get that magic algorithm working. But these days, when you put an ad out there, even if you know who the ideal customer is, it feels like a crowded room. Imagine you going on a concert with somebody who you never met, and this person is standing on the other side of the room and you're just trying to shout. You're not going to get their attention that way.
Mm.
And, and the thing is that by analyzing all of these similarities and differences, I realized that it's not just that there was iOS 14 algorithm changes. It's also that all of the big businesses were originally a bit immune to social media, right? Because they used to use the traditional advertisement channels. They used to use the newspapers and the TV and all of these kind of things. But then at some point they caught up, right? And so they started to flood social media with advertisement. But it's not just that it increased the competitiveness, the pricing of it, but it also increased the competitiveness for attention.
Mm-hmm.
So when I explored how often we see an ad, this has dramatically increased. It used to be 1 out of 10 posts used to be an ad.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's 1 out of 5. So every 5th post is an ad. So, statistically in 2021, human attention span is 8 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
8 seconds. And that's less than a goldfish, because goldfish is 9 seconds. So with that attention span of 8 seconds and more expensive ads because of the media being around, of the big businesses being around, and not having the algorithm magic, we've got to do something more intelligently, right? Mm-hmm. Otherwise, we can write ourselves out of business. And we need to remember that it is the fastest growing industry. Yeah. And it's something I read the statistic, is something 75% of consumers are more willing to buy from a new brand that they've never heard before. So the opportunities are there, right? No doubt. We just need to do this more intelligently. And that's what the intelligent commerce or iCommerce is all about.
Mm-hmm. And are there any specific principles or frameworks with regards to how to do e-commerce more intelligently?
Yes, 100%. There's many, but the first one and really main one is that you just need to be able to cut through with your message. The messaging needs to be crystal clear and much more niche down than we ever used to niche down. Mm-hmm. So, lots of brand builders used to, target to all women who love, certain type of fashion. But we just need to go deeper, to be able to create that message that will really cut through. And that message needs to be much more emotional, right? Like in the past, as long as we put a great deal out there, that was enough, like, hey, you like this funky thing, now buy 2 for 3, get or buy 2, 50% off, whatever. But that no longer really works.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't cut through enough. So we just need to move into a bit more emotional messaging where we really struck a nerve with that particular customer type.
Do you have any examples that comes to mind of someone that you coached and they had like a certain generic message, and what tweaks did you do and how did it impact the results?
Yeah, great question. So we've got a few. So just to mention a few who like do this really, really well. So we've got Austin, for example. He's doing really well, and he is in bike apparel.
Mm-hmm.
So he essentially sells clothing for cycling. And in the past, like the messages about cycling used to be just like, this is just like bike cycling clothing, whatever. Mm-hmm. But now it needs to be much more specific about creating a certain movement or community even, right? So it's about like, hey, this is who we are. We specifically, operate in this area of this forest, and we really love this forest because this and this and that. And as a result, this is what we stand for, and this is what we stand against, which allow them to attract customers from the whole US and the world as well, right? So just really specifically looking at not just the niching, but also what we call like brand polarization, right? Like specifically saying, who do you attract and who do you not attract? So
quick favor, guys. If you enjoy these shows and have been a listener for quite some time now, we would really, really appreciate it if you could take the time to give us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever your preferred podcast app may be. Having lots of ratings and audience feedback makes our show become more visible across multiple platforms. And it also supports our mission of helping as many people as possible to become better marketers and better entrepreneurs. So if you're not driving and it wouldn't be dangerous, pause this thing right now and give us an honest review over your podcast app. And we will love you even more than we already do. Thank you for taking the time, and I hope you enjoyed the show. It sounds like more of like a change of some sort of the brand perception, and less focused on the direct response aspect, and less focused on like the messaging in the copy of the specific ad. Do you also do any change with regard to the direct response aspect, or it's mainly changing first, creating like the brand polarization? It's the first step, but obviously, but did you also have to do like tweaks to the direct response as a result of creating the polarization?
So when you say changes to direct response, do you refer to like the copy of what the
for
ad
example
is?
the copy, for example, of the landing page and the copy of the ad, for example, because the billboard is more like brand awareness stuff, and direct response is more like the Facebook ad, which is more going for the kill. So definitely the direct response stuff. So everything I'm talking about is more for the direct response stuff. It's less, if you think about the branding is more just a result of all of the exercise you end up doing. But very much it's about running conversion ads, obviously, making sure that you get the right audience in the direct response, but in a way that it cuts through more than anything ever has before. And I think this is where lots of entrepreneurs struggle to decide who they want and who they don't want. Because they want everybody. They want everybody. But as you said, you can.
Because people don't want to miss out on business, right? It's natural. Particularly we've got lots of students who are starting out, and particularly starting out students, like they don't want to say like, hey, what if what if I don't include dads and it's going to be a bad decision because these dads going to buy more than moms? But the thing is that, in my view, in my opinion, like there is market for everything. There is a niche for every single product. We just need to be willing to essentially polarize, right? And in a way discriminate who this is not for. It doesn't mean you're never going to get those people, but it just means you're going to be clearer and attract in an easier way who this is really for.
This is a big dilemma for people who are just starting out, I guess, because you want to keep all your options in a way, and you don't want to niche, as you said, you don't want to niche down, and you don't want to focus on a specific customer because you're afraid you might be missing on a better opportunity. But in a way, I think it was more likely to work in the past, this unniching down and just throwing. I had a guest in my podcast that said as a dropshipper used to throw shit on the wall and just see what sticks. So it used to work, but these days I think it doesn't work as well. So you need to choose a niche and invest time and money and effort in building the brand. So I totally agree with the fact that you need to polarize and create and think about a specific audience and double down on the audience in opposing to what used to work in the past. In my opinion, this has completely changed.
Yeah, 100%. And, and once you do that, you've got endless opportunities because you are also essentially creating, I refer to this kind of like your own stage, because audiences and targeting online became so much more expensive. And again, this got me like thinking, and then I realized like, hang on a minute, if you go to a concert to see Lady Gaga and you pay for a ticket to see Lady Gaga, like you only gonna see Lady Gaga. There is not gonna be Beyonce or anybody else in there. Like, sure, she's gonna have some runner-up or whatever is the warm-up called, somebody you might have not heard of, some starting up artist, but you're just gonna give 100% attention to that performer. And this has been the problem for in e-commerce for online ads, right? That you don't get people's 100% attention. So that's when I was thinking like, okay, well, how do we build our own stage? And is it even possible? We really discovered through intelligent commerce, through iCommerce, that it is possible. And the more you niche down, the easier it's going to be for you to build that unique audience, because all of these social media platforms, whilst they might have lost track of what happens once you get off the platform, they're still very much conscious of what happens inside the platform, right? And that allows you to create few different audiences and play in a field that's like 10 times less expensive than everything else.
And what is your take with regards to, I'm sure that some people might be listening and they have an idea for a specific niche, but they might be afraid from the scaling potential. So what are your thoughts about this and what you're seeing from your students, the people that you coach, that started out as something that seemed to be like a very esoteric and small niche, and how are you able to scale, even though it seems small at the beginning, but once you have the stage, you can do a lot more crazy and interesting stuff. So do you have any examples that come to mind?
Yes, I do. And I could tell you about a couple, but what I guess just to one back, sometimes when people talk about niching down, and I think this is where we need to distinguish between like drop shipping or brand building, is sometimes when people talk about niching down, they think they have to niche down on one specific product, and that's going to be hard to scale, or that they're going to have a store that's just going to be selling, green Tupperware or whatever. Versus in branding, if we are building a brand and you niche down, you're more focused on the customer, right? And a customer as a human being is a little bit more complex. So there is always going to be space for movement and scaling. Like, for example, one of our students, Tamara, and we've got lots of stores in our community who create their own products, right? So like, for example, Tamara, she makes earrings, she makes jewelry, and her specific niche is like a eccentric jewelry for gay community. And, you might think like this is really specific, but it doesn't mean that she's just going to get the gay guys who buy her jewelry. That's not the only thing. But by polarizing that way, she is definitely going to get those guys and anybody else who loves that type of branding, which is really infinitive, right? But it's going to be so clear, so easy to cut through. And, she's had a great success. Like, she started literally like selling few earrings on the market and then, selling like $1,000 a month online. And, within a few months, she got to like over 20,000 and then, has been growing it since.
Nice.
So, so I think that's important for us to understand that as long as you have a quality product and you understand who is it for, like there is market for everything. It's just, obviously, if you just want to sell crap or sell just stuff to anyone, then that's a problem, right? Because then forever you just, worry, is this a trending product or not? But as long as you have a quality product, like, there is, in my opinion, you should not worry about the ability to scale because the e-commerce market is huge.
I agree. And I love the distinction that you made between like niching down on the customer in opposing to niching down on specific products. And just to add to this, so for example, in this case, Tamara, I don't know what she's doing already, but she can always think about another problem or another pain point of the specific audience because she already has the foot in the door. She already has their loyalty, their trust, their emails, and she can start providing other solutions. So horizontal scaling, some people call it horizontal scaling. So this can be solution. As you said, the problems are infinite and the solutions are also infinite. So it's definitely room for scaling.
Exactly. And that's where the branding is really powerful, right? When you polarize it, do the right branding, because then that one customer will buy everything you've got. So if you think about the lifetime value, that's just crazy.
Amazing. And I wanted to ask you, because for me, an example, I don't have a lot. I have my own stores and I have very few coaching people that I coach. So I don't have such a wide perspective of real numbers, but you have so many people that you're coaching.
Yes.
But from my experience, and I have also a lot of friends that are e-commerce store owners, I feel that the Pareto principle is very strong with regards to the products that are working and the rest of the products in the stores. Do you feel the same, or do you have like a lot of students that are selling and the distribution of product sales is kind of like a normal distribution?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I guess just in case, we're going to have some listeners who don't understand the Pareto principle. So it's like the 80-20, right? Yeah. So essentially what you're saying is that 20% of the products are bringing 80% of the revenue. To be honest with you, from my experience with our students, yes, everybody has like something that they call the bestseller, but I don't necessarily think it's 80-20. Yeah, I don't necessarily think it's 80-20. I think it would be more like, the 20% of products bring like maybe 40% of revenue or max 50, and then the rest 50 is spread, but definitely not 80. That's not what I've seen across brands.
Cool. Interesting. Yeah. And it might be also related. It obviously depends on the context, like everything in life, but the type of brand. So I think in drop shipping and small skincare stuff, so it might be more frequent that you see like the 80-20 principle, but maybe in brands like sell clothes or earrings, so it might be like more of a normal distribution.
And plus you're right, because when you're thinking about lots of brands, there is always a seasonal change as well, right? Yeah, so in that case, there would be always like a new collection coming in.
Cool. And what about some digital products? Do you have any people that are selling digital products or enhancing their AOV with digital products? Because these days, as we know, Facebook ads are kind of underperforming, and a lot of people are struggling to keep profitability. And in my opinion, adding digital products is a great solution. And I'm just wondering if something that you see very often.
Yes, very good question. So when we teach iCommerce, intelligent commerce, this is definitely part of it. How can we work the numbers backwards and realize, okay, well, if I need this to be my average order value, then how can I get to that, right? And we definitely teach that the that the best or easiest way to it is to add digital product. I have to say that in terms of like for brand builders, this is still a very new concept, and there is still lots of testing. So I wouldn't be able to like give you data for this particular specific point, but I also think and agree that that's like completely the future, because like if you're selling pots, then you're probably going to be cooking. So like, what are the 10 best recipes in under 10 minutes? Bang, and that's just like a download, it can be like worth whatever, $9.95, or even more if you like create a nice, simple thing from Canva, and it doesn't cost you anything, right? I also don't think that it's not always just to increase average order value. I also think it's to help that conversion in the first place.
Yeah, the offer stacking in the first place.
Offer stacking, because we're coming to the point where, just a product on its own, it's just not enough. Like there needs to be some story behind it, right? Because otherwise, if you're just selling a product, it's just a commodity. There is no personal attachment. And, it's hard to create such a unique product that nobody else has it. So, and that's when people start price comparisons, right? But if you offer something unique, which, the digital product can be part of it, then, you're certainly helping your conversion rate a lot. Yeah,
for sure. And it's just a great tool for differentiation. And I always tell, I had a call with people that I coach, and I told them that basically once you create the digital asset, you have it for lifetime. And it doesn't take so much effort to create this. You can also outsource. If you're talking about like a PDF or ebook, it's very easy to do. And if you're talking about some sort of a complementary course, it might take a bit longer, but you can use it in so many different scenarios. Also for offer stacking, also as an upsell.
Yes.
Immediately after the purchase, or maybe later on, or maybe like in the win back sequence. So basically, it's a great asset to have, in my opinion.
Yes, 100%. 100%. And as you said, it could be not just a downloadable, could be also like a mini course, right? Like how many of us have bought something and then you forever keep watching those videos on YouTube that tell you how to use specific part of it, like just a simple thing. Like recently we bought like mangoes and then we are like, hey, but how do you cut a mango? Because we forgot. And then we forever kept watching like on YouTube, how is it that you cut mangoes? But if one of these things already comes with it, then that's an add value, right?
For sure. And then you can also even connect this to a community. This is also something do you most of your students, do they create a community? Do they have a community around their product or brand, or not yet?
Some of them are doing that. Again, it's still a new thing, but yes, definitely they're starting to create that, because you see how that's a necessity as well, right?
For sure, because in a way you want to retain some sort of control of your customers, even though if it's a Facebook group, so you're not really controlling it. But
and not just that you want to retain control, but that you want to. And this is also, where I really call it intelligent commerce, where you use the algorithm instead the algorithm using you, because the algorithm is used to using us. Give me your money and I'll put your stuff in front of people on demand, right? But then we have no control in terms of like how many other ads they're going to be. And they just keep increasing the number of ads and keep increasing the cost of advertisement. But if you've got a specific community, then that algorithm works for you, because what social media platforms want for you is to stay longer on social media, because the longer you stay, the more valuable you are for them, because you create more advertising space. And so naturally, when people are part of a certain community, naturally the algorithm displays this for free. So once you have a larger community, I've seen a business that does this really well. We've done a little bit of work with them, but I cannot take credit for what they've achieved. I would love to, but I cannot. But what I've seen that they do really, really well is they sell like kitchenware products, and they created this community on Facebook, and they just keep growing it. And these people are real enthusiasts. And in that group, they share recipe and all this stuff. But the best thing is that whenever they launch a new product or are about to launch it, these people are lining up to buy
Amazing.
it, lining up. And then the best thing is that these are fans. So you can give them a pre-launch offer. As a pre-launch offer, you can say, hey, this is a pre-launch offer. Can you, I don't know, write a review or whatever? And so these guys are like continuously bestseller, and obviously not just selling these products in their store, but they manage to be bestsellers on multiple platforms, including Amazon, which we know Amazon is like really hard, particularly in the US, right? And it's all because they just keep those enthusiasts like really engaged, and whatever they create, these guys just like jump on it.
Nice. This is amazing. It reminds me of a concept. It's a very famous blog post by a guy called Kevin Kelly. It's called the 1,000 True Fans. So as soon as you have like 1,000 true fans, which is not so, when you think about it, it's not so hard to achieve 1,000 true fans in the whole world. People that share similar values to you or appreciate the content that you're uploading. And once you have 1,000 true fans, let's say they give you $1 $10 every month. So it's already like $10,000 income in a way.
Yes.
So it's already very valuable to have these true fans, because they also create referrals. They also going to buy from the pre-launch, which is great, because then you have like signals and you cover your costs up front. So there's a lot of value in building communities. And it's interesting that you're saying that it's not very popular just yet. I don't see it very often as well. And I think it's an opportunity for sure. Awesome. Great, Silvia. What did we cover? Is there anything that you wanted to mention that we didn't talk about just yet before we conclude the conversation?
That's a good question. I didn't really think about anything. I guess I would, just say that if you guys like find yourselves that stuff is not working, like don't panic. Because that's what we tend to do all the time, right? We panic. And when we panic, everything we know, and I do this including myself, everything we know just goes out the door. And that's when we end up like, sometimes we screw up more than it's been already screwed up, and it can be really expensive. So, and trust me, like this is, me having spent my own money and keep spending my own money. So that would just be one thing. Like if you find yourself things are not working, just take a step back and, follow step by step what's happening, follow your funnel, just principles, going back to the fundamental principles. It's always a great solution. And just analyzing, I do it as a practice. I just analyze the funnel and see from my own eyes, it is offers that can be resisted. And I just ask myself, would I pay for this? Obviously, I'm not necessarily the avatar, my ideal customer, but I still try to figure out, is this an offer that can be resisted? And exactly,
let's go back to the fundamentals. And very often it really helps.
Yes, 100%.
Awesome. Great. So where can people find more about you? And I know that you're running the business with your husband. So where can people reach out, see your content?
Yes, great question. So we've got a link that's probably going to be placed below. Yeah, for sure. So you guys can, welcome to check out our content. We've got lots of free webinars. Welcome to come to check us out on our website, silviamyers.co. Have a look. We are running a Ninja webinar that's going to give you kind of like 2 hours of solid insight into what iCommerce is, and can't wait to have you there.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much, Silvia. Sounds amazing. And obviously we'll share the links in the show notes. And it's been a lot of fun, and I really appreciate the insights. Have a lovely rest of your evening.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Hi guys, this is Yaron again. Just a few more things before you take off. Number 1, if you want to learn more about e-commerce and marketing, make sure you check out our YouTube channel, which is called eCom X Factor Official. Number 2, check out our Facebook group, which is called eCom X Factor Marketing and E-commerce Mastermind. This is a great place to ask questions and connect with other business owners. And last but not least, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to share it with your friends and colleagues, plus leave a review at your favorite podcast app.